Hey, I'm Kenny Aronoff, and I'm on Musicians on the Record here with Dave. And I want you to know that you have to hit it.
1, 2, 3, 4.
This is huge, musicians on the record. Bring it on.
It was either on Facebook or Instagram. You were learning songs. I think it might have been you were recording something, the Rangers maybe, and you were learning Good Times, Bad Times. And you talked about how that is a bitch of a song. Can you tell us a little bit about what your process was? I mean, that is a hard song by Bonham, right?
Absolutely. It's iconic. And I made a commitment to myself that if I couldn't deliver the perfection, then I have no right to deliver it. And so I was prepared to pull the plug. So, with my method and intense, work ethic, what I did was Alfred Publications did a rendition of Good Times, Bad Times. Plus I had written the whole thing out myself. So essentially what I was trying to do was play exactly what John Bonham did. That's what I tried to do. I'd say I was like 99%. I mean, I know I did and I broke it into 3 sections, the whole first section and the solo section, and then the ending section, which has the famous 2-measure triplets, 16th note triplets. And I took a 26, was it a 26 or 28 bass drum, I think it's 26 Ludwig by 14, 2 heads with no hole in it, tuned it up real high like Bonham did. And so the beater would come off the head, and essentially what I'm trying to do is get each stroke of those triplets to sound equal, not da-da, but da-da, 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 da-da. I can't even say it, but da-da, 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 da-da. And I had the hi-hat going 8 notes, the cowbell 8 notes. I did it live, man. There were no edits. It was just, when I did it in sections, and then we would how did I do that? I did it in sections, and then I did it all the way through. I guess you could call it an edit in that we took one section to the other, but it wasn't like I punched in or fixed anything.
Right.
And I practiced it hard and intensely, and then I did 4 other songs. 2 other songs were Allman Brothers songs. So I had one of my best friends, a great drummer, Sean Pelton, play the other drum parts. Now, the way this came about is Sean had been doing what they do is, let me start this. The New York Rangers, Madison Square Garden, iconic building. So it's a rock and roll musician's dream to play there, which I have. But what happened was the idea is that in between periods, they have a live band playing up top where it's the organ player, ba-da-da-da-da-da. He's up there. You can fit a bass player and a guitar player up there, but no drums. Okay. So they have drummers do tracks. So Sean Felton has been doing it. And the guy that handles the entertainment in the Madison Square Garden is a guy I grew up with. Wow. Mark Allman. And Mark called me up and says, "Hey, Kenny, man, it's Mark. How you doing? Hey, we've had Sean do this, but we'd love to, have you do some tracks. And then you and Sean do 2 together, the Allman Brothers." I went, absolutely. So what I did was I did it. I had the organ player send me the click track and their arrangements, and I did it. For example, Good Times, Bad Times, they double the solo, where they do it twice as long as Led Zeppelin. So what happened is that I would do these tracks, then we mixed it. With my engineer and me would mix it, because we had to consider that these drum tracks were being blasted from the ceiling at Madison Square Garden. What are the acoustics in that room? And it's got to be ambient, but it's got to be articulate too. And we mixed it, and they loved it, and that was a new experience for me, playing drums for the New York Rangers, and I'm back in Madison Square Garden. And I actually was there working on a TV show, And I got done with rehearsal in time to go with Sean Pelton, sitting right in the middle of the, at the what would be the 50-yard line of a football game. And our names come up on the screen. We're sitting there drinking beers, and it's unbelievable. And it sounded great.
Awesome. You're worldwide, Kenny, is what you are. So let me ask you one last question about that Bonham song, just for the gear geek in me. You had to tune up your bass drum high like Bonham did. Did you do anything with your pedal? And if not, what's your pedal? Where's your spring setting at?
No, I didn't do it in my pedal. What I did have to do is play a little bit lighter to get things a little bit more, to get the evenness on the bass drum strokes. I had to the more strokes I play on my bass drum, the lighter I will play to get that evenness. Otherwise, the last note is going to be the loudest. And I didn't want to have that samba sound. So I just had to tell myself to play a little bit lighter. And when I do play multiple strokes, I have to drop my heel more. The more strokes I do, the more I drop my heel. But I use a molar technique. So I drop my heel. I come down like that. Because at that speed, unless I was to play with my heel all the way down, but that's too soft for me. Where you could do like wicked fast, like Buddy Rich could do, with his heel down and just go, play those triplets. I never saw how Bonham did it. I'd be curious, but Bonham had an unusually exceptional foot. He just was extraordinary. And I use a Tama Iron Cobra, which is one of the greatest pedals out there. I actually use a wood beater, which is heavier than the light. A lot of people go into these lighter beaters, but I like to feel the weight of a traditional size beater. And then instead of felt, I go to wood, which makes it very articulate.
Can we talk about MusiCares a little bit more? And is that similar to, I think about Clapton and his Rehab Crossroads. Tell us more about MusiCares and your role in it, please.
Well, MusiCares is an event that is a fundraiser to help musicians, that are trying to go through rehab with drug and alcohol consumptions, and even furthermore, they help people maybe, in their older years, if they're down out and broke, help them with maybe their mortgage or not mortgage, but a place, rent and utilities and food or whatever. But you get the drift, and people in the industry come, and it's quite expensive to go there to get a plate, but it's very cool because you'll see everybody. I mean, and hire all the executives from the labels are there, all the big producers, the big engineers, obviously people who can afford to go, songwriters, musicians. And I've done it 3 times. And, one time when I was doing the honoring Bob Dylan, there were 2 stages, and I'd go from stage 1 to 2 right through the audience. I'd hear people yelling out my name. Hey, Kenny, how you doing? I look over there. There's the president of Sirius Radio. What's happening? There's, a manager of 20 bands, and that it's so cool. It's great to be seen and, around your peers and, all facets of the industry. It's Don is the guy who's the musical director who's hired me every time, and he's one of my dearest friends and now becoming one of my oldest friends. And this year we're going to honor Fleetwood Mac, and a lot of them. I know Keith Urban's doing it. I can't remember. I think I can't remember the list exactly. There's a lot of amazing artists. The girl Lord, she's doing it. I can't remember. There's a lot. I mean, it could be anybody. Yeah. It could be anybody imaginable.
And when does that happen, Kenny? When can we look for that?
Well, I'm going to film it on the 26th of January, but it won't come out until after. It won't be live.
Got it.
They'll edit it.
And is that part of the NAMM show as well?
No, it's the day before Grammys. It's always the day before Grammys. It's associated with the Grammys.
Got it.
Because that's how you get everybody shows up at the Grammys. You just the day before, bam.
That's right. You know, you mentioned Don Was as well. You've mentioned him a couple of times. Obviously, legendary producer. Can you say a little bit more about him and you connecting with him, what you've learned from him, and just more about Don, please?
Well, Don is definitely one of my favorite people, top 5 in my life. And he's not only a great musician, but he's like an amazing human being, kind of like almost like a Buddha. He's gentle. He's gentle, but he still has, he knows what he wants. He hires great musicians and lets them do their thing. He's not a control freak. I've never seen him get angry. He's always very, very positive. He's kind. It's almost unusual in any business. It's a very, very special person, and he tells me what he wants, but he likes to let me do my own thing. That's why he hires me. It's amazing.
Yeah, that is special, right? No question. Yeah.
I had to just turn down a gig with him. It was like, telling your mom that you're not coming home for a year or something.
Right.
It's horrible.
When's the last time you did a project with him?
Oh, recently I just did, what did I just do? I did, it was in October. I did the Kenny Rogers and honoring Kenny Rogers, the Brickstone Arena in Nashville. I feel like I did one other thing. I saw him on Christmas time at a party.
Let's switch gears a little bit. I read more of your book. If you haven't picked it up, Sex, Drums, and Rock and Roll, the hardest hitting man in show business. Your forward, by the way, is no slouch in the music community. Neil Peart did your forward, Kenny. Talk a little bit about Neil Peart and your relationship with him and what he's meant to you as a drummer.
Well, Neil, I met him when I was doing the recording with the Buddy Rich Big Band for a tribute to Buddy in the early 90s. And I was the last guy last day because I was so busy recording all over the place. I was in Nashville. That was the week I was doing Philadelphia with the Cinderella. I was in Nashville with Hank Jr. I think I was in Memphis, and I was in Canada. And I was scared I wasn't going to make it to the session. I was the last guy last day. Walk in, Neil is very, very nice, very kind. And then we didn't get to hang too much. But what happened was I was recording later that year in Montreal, in a very outside of Montreal, very famous studio, which sadly is now gone, called Morin Heights, where Rush would do records up there. I did a lot of records with different artists up there, mostly Canadian. And, Bon Jovi produced Aldo Nova, which was a big Canadian artist. So we did it there. I did Corey Hart, who grew up in Montreal, up there. Anyway, I'm up there doing something with Corey Hart. He's producing an artist, a female artist. And all of a sudden, Neil Peart pops his head in. And he says, "Oh, Kenny, can I talk to you?" And he says, "Listen, I'm mixing the Buddy Rich tracks, but there's this one song called 'Pick Up the Pieces' by Average White Band, and what's his name didn't want to take a drum solo on it, and I'm spacing out for some reason. Steve Ferroni didn't want to take a drum solo. He's just like, the groove, I feel like it needs something, so you want to overdub percussion. Well, I've had a lot of experience playing percussion because in Mellencamp band, I had to do a lot of percussion, a lot of weird building tracks up from the bottom up, sometimes doing percussion first, then drums. So Neil and I started with the low tones and then moved up to the middle tones, then the medium tones, then the medium high tones, then the high tones. And we spent a long time jamming together, playing. We called ourselves the Bald Bongo Brothers or something. I don't know. Whatever, it was something crazy. And afterwards, I got into one of his sports cars, drove to his house, and we drank some scotch and listened to the mixes of the Buddy Rich Big Band, hung out, and he showed me where there was an island. We were up on a hill in the woods. It was beautiful. It's an island down there, and he said he'd go over there by himself or with his daughter or something. His wife was in the house. They would do like Morse code or signals back to each other. So we became real close. ever since then. And when sometimes I'd be in his bus driver, or Rush's bus driver became Melissa Etheridge's bus driver, and we were on tour one time in Toronto, and I had dinner with all the guys in Rush.
That's amazing.
It was really cool. And, of course, Neil's like extraordinary drummer and incredible writer too.
Yeah, I mean, he's an amazing mix of, not many drummers write the music or write the songs, right?
Yeah.
He's one of them. Tell me about your, you mentioned Buddy Rich too. I mean, let's talk about him for a second. Obviously, probably the widely regarded as the best drummer of all time. How did you sort of deal with playing some of his music, paying tribute to him?
Well, first of all, there's nobody like anybody, of course, but Buddy Rich was, you can't put it into words. It was off the hook extraordinary. It was a natural ability that was uncanny, and that's all I can say. I mean, if it's so obvious that he's in a class of his own, and it was as if he was born playing that great. He didn't have to practice, that kind of thing. Playing with the Buddy Rich Big Band was probably the most scariest session. It was the scariest session I've ever done in my life. First of all, they asked me at first, Kathy Rich asked me to play like some rock songs. I went, no way. I mean, there's no way I was going to play, because the rock songs that Buddy Rich did weren't the coolest. I decided I'd play Big Swing Face because it was a medium tempo song. Of course, I wrote it out because I didn't have time to memorize it because I was doing sessions. And I wanted to do Straight No Chaser, but I was a little bit scared about that. He calls me up. I'll never forget where I was. I was doing drum clinics. That's what I was doing. Yeah, I was in, and I know exactly who I was with. Jim Heath from Tama. And I get a call, and she said, Ken, everybody's doing 2 songs. How would you like to do Straight No Chaser? I went, oh, my God, I would love to. But I don't know, man. I don't know. It's pretty insane. And I said, well, I'll do it, but I have the option to, like, nix it. I walk into that studio. First of all, it was the first time I'd ever seen a Tama Star Classic kit. I'd been playing the Art Star, total different beast. So I had to learn how to tune it right there on the spot. The clock is ticking. Neil's going, come on, let's go on. The ring, what do you call it? The thing, the clamps that would be the rim system that would hold the drum. Sure. They had a 13-inch for a 12-inch.
Oh, no.
What are you going to do? I bent it. I just bent it in shape and put it on there.
That's great.
And the bottom line is that the band was extremely intimidating from my perspective. I walked in, they looked at me like I was the janitor, or at least that's what I thought. And when I had to discuss, they didn't know me. It wasn't like, Steve Gadd walking in. So I walk in and we start going over to the form, and they had different form, and I'm like, that made me nervous. Oh my God. So I'm making adjustments. We start doing Big Swing Face, and after 4 takes, they were so loud, it was unbelievable. It was so loud. I mean, they were facing me. There was no baffles except for the piano and bass. They were in their own little compartments. So after 4 takes, I go back in to listen, thinking, I'm going to go out and do 4 more or 12 more or 18 more, whatever. Neil Peart says, that's great, man. Great job. I said, nah, I could play a little bit better. He said, well, that's all you get. I went, what do you mean that's all I get? Yeah, you only get 4 takes. I went, nobody told me that. Wish you had told me. I would have gone like, oh my God, this is my last chance. And I just felt like I could have had a little bit more lilt, swing. They brought Freddie Gruber in and said, Freddie, what do you think? Freddie goes, the kid sounds good. It's good. I'm like, oh, man. So now I'm going to do Straight No Chaser. Yeah. And I'm like bull ready to just go. And I went, you got 4 chances. And I don't know which take it was. I don't even know if I did 4 takes. But there was a take that was blazing, and I played it wicked fast. And I remember thinking, this sounds amazing. Who's playing? This is not me. And I remember saying to myself, I looked at my hands, I went, well, I'm reading and playing. And it sounds so good. I went, well, who's ever playing, man, don't get in their way because they're doing a pretty good job. It's like I didn't want to psych myself out and stop and go, whoa, get freaked out by this weird out-of-body experience. Right. Some people call that the flow. And and at the end, I had a drum solo that was unworked out. You know, when you do a drum solo, you can always drop one beat or something goes out of time or the groove. It just all flowed. I have no regrets, and that's rare. And you're doing this in the jazz record, and I'm a rock drummer at this time. So I was extremely happy. It was a very rewarding session. And, I'm not a fight or flight guy. I'm a fight or fight guy. And I'm not intimidated or paralyzed to be creative when I'm in a fearful situation. And I controlled that situation the best I could, and the results were great. And so, what can I say? I was really happy.
That's how you move through it, and you got the Freddie Gruber seal of approval, and anytime you get that, it's all good, right?
I guess, man. I still wish I could have done it again.
Well, we'll work on getting you another take on that. So.
Well, you know what? Recently, it was last year at this time, me and Dave Weckl both sat in with the Buddy Rich Big Band at Catalina's in L.A. I was like, oh, my God, because ever since then, I've been using that Straight No Chaser tune on my drum clinics or when I speak. I use that as my finale, and it's like I feel like I own that song now. It's me. I love it. I play it with so much zest. I love that song. And I have to admit, I played it pretty fast. I don't think – see, New York, they like it wicked fast because it's New York. L.A., they like it a little bit more laid back, and I was playing it New York style. It was blazing. When I got done, I looked over the trumpet player and went, like, that was awesome. But the sax players, I don't think were happy because they have to play ba-da-da-da, 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 they're like, but it was great. Yeah. It's so cool playing with that band.
Yeah, well, and Dave Weckl is an amazing drummer.
Oh, my God, yeah. Well, I love playing. See, when I was younger, when I did clinics with a guy like Dave Weckl or Thomas Lang, I'd be, oh, my God. Now it's like, I can't touch them. I mean, they're so great. I just love watching them play because they're so amazing. And I just do my thing, which is completely different from theirs. We've all become specialists at what we do. Thomas Lang, I usually just jump on him, get him at a headlock and beat him up because I said, it's not fair. How can you play like that?
He's a machine, isn't he? He's incredible. So.
Yeah, a robot.
Right, no question, right? But with some feel, right? That's amazing.
Oh, yeah, man. No, these guys, I wish I wasn't so busy I could see these guys more often.
Right. But one of the things that you're busy about is you are writing the second book now. Can we talk about that? And that's going to be the follow-up to Sex, Drums, and Rock and Roll. Is there a title yet, or are we waiting for that?
Well, I have a working title. There's no question that, well, I'm thinking my book ends, my autobiography ends with a life lesson I learned from my Uncle Nat. And it was what he said. He asked me what the most valuable thing in life is. And of course, as a little kid, I looked at it. He was a fighter pilot, Golden Gloves boxer, self-made millionaire, super, super successful at boats and planes. So I figured money, and I was only 12. I looked at his watch, and he was doing one-handed push-ups. This is what he was smoking a cigar during Thanksgiving in my room. He was a tough son of a bitch. This guy, when you hit him, you hurt your hands. This guy was steel. And so he said, hey, while he's doing the push-ups, saying, you know what the most important thing in life is, kid? He stands up, and I'm like scared to say the wrong thing. I see a gold watch. So I went, money? He went, no, stupid. He hits me in the shoulder and almost knocks me over. He says, time is the most important thing. Time. When you're 12 years old, what do you care about time? I was just thinking, I want to go out and play with my brother. You're scaring me. And so what I started realizing, well, maybe you got to be on time. It stuck with me because he hit a nerve that my deeper spirit understood what he was saying. And I thought, well, maybe, you got to be on time. He's saying, yeah, be on time. Yeah, like a soldier on time for things. Whatever. Then later on, I thought, oh my God, he knew I was going to be a drummer. He was trying to be cool. Time is the most important thing, kid. You got to play in time. And then when I became an adult, which was only last year, I realized what he was talking about. He was sharing the value of, time on this planet. And, he's a guy who was an entrepreneur, and every minute and every second was so valuable to him. And he was starting to feel the value of time. He wanted to pass it on to me. And so I've thought about calling my book Time as a pickup from the last book, Live Your Life Loud. And, the first line is basically, are you living your life loud, or are you dying on the vine? Because most people are dying on the vine. If you do nothing, you get nothing. Your success will not fall out of the sky, I guarantee you, because the guys that are self-disciplined and working hard will walk right over you and past you. While you're waiting for it to happen, people are taking action. And that's basically what the whole book is about, and how I was able to record on over 300 million records sold, toured with all these bands and TV, and have had a career for 4 decades, and it's still going. I'm not the most talented drummer in the world. It's a package. It's not how good you are. There's things like communication skills and teamwork and the ability to get along and being prepared and having your head in the right space and being able to adapt. There's a million things that go into being mentally, physically, and emotionally healthy. I talk about all of this. And it's basically that I wanted to have in my autobiography, but they already had cut out 300 pages of sessions and, things like what happened with me and Kim, what didn't happen with me and Cameron Diaz and stuff like that. They left that out.
Okay.
So no room for this.
Yeah.
So this book is a self-help book. And so, yeah, it's these books are hard to write. They take up a lot of time. So
quite a process, right? I mean, how do you?
Well, I mean, I edit every page myself over and over and over again. Then I give it to the editor, and and then I edit what they do. It just never ends. It's like making a record. So it's a pretty heavy process, but I think I'll stop after this. This will be, it's pretty intense. Takes up a lot of time.
Yeah, so we may not get the bookshelf full of books, but this will be the good sequel.
This will be sequel. I don't know what I would write about next. So right now, this is it.
Well, maybe it hasn't come to you yet.
It ties in with, I do a lot of speaking, and I have a whole show. It ties into both books are in the show, basically. It's sharing, it doesn't matter if you're a musician or an athlete or a businessman or a teacher, a painter. It doesn't matter. It's the same basic principles to be the best that you can be. My teacher, George Gabriel, when I was at Indiana University, said, man, you don't know if you're going to be a famous basket weaver or whatever it is. Your skills that you're learning here, the self-discipline and the hard work is going to make you who you are when you leave here. And he said, man, you may someday be a famous rock and roll drummer. And I told him, I hope not. I'm not kidding. Yeah, I said that because at that point I was trying to get into a symphony orchestra, and I devoted, in 5 years, I maybe took 2 years off from practicing. That's it. Every summer, I was either at the Aspen School of Music or at Tanglewood, which was the top two music schools in the summer in the United States, if not the world. And, it took me 4 years to get into Tanglewood. They only take 7 percussionists in the whole world. And, and I got into the Jerusalem Symphony Orchestra. I mean, it was like, that was where I was headed, and he was right, man. You don't know where you're going to be. You don't know what's going to happen. Look what happened. I became the guy I said I would never be.